Ever wondered how a small kingdom along the Niger River turned into one of the richest empires in African history? Let's rewind the clock to the early 13th century, when the mighty Ghana Empire was fading, and something new was about to rise, the Mali Empire. Now picture this. In the heart of West Africa, near modern-day Mali and Guinea, there was a little kingdom called Kangaba. It wasn't much on its own, but it was home to a boy named Sundiata Keita. Sundiata's story isn't just history, it's legend. Passed down through generations by griots, the storytellers of West Africa, it's known as the Epic of Sundiata. Sundiata wasn't born a hero. In fact, he struggled to walk as a child, and many doubted he'd ever lead at all. But this is where things get interesting. You see, Sundiata's determination was stronger than any curse or setback. His family's rivals, the Soso, led by the infamous sorcerer King Sumanguru Kante, took over much of the region, pushing Sundiata and his family into exile. But exile didn't break him, it made him stronger. Sundiata gathered allies from neighboring kingdoms, united by a common enemy. In 1235, at the legendary Battle of Kirina, Sundiata's forces squared off against Sumanguru's army. According to legend, Sumanguru had magical powers, but Sundiata outsmarted him, and with that victory, he did something truly epic. He united the fractured kingdoms under a single banner, founding the Mali Empire. What made Mali different? For starters, Sundiata set up a new model for leadership. He ruled not through fear, but through alliances and respect for local customs. He welcomed different peoples, Mandinka, Fulani, Songhai, and built a system where local chiefs could keep their traditions, as long as they pledged loyalty to the new empire. This unity paid off in a big way. Mali sat on some of the world's richest gold fields and controlled critical trade routes across the Sahara. Soon, cities like Timbuktu and Niani became bustling centers of trade, learning, and culture. So the next time you hear about legendary African empires, remember Mali's rise wasn't just about gold or conquests. It was about a boy who defied the odds, united a divided land, and laid the foundation for one of West Africa's greatest civilizations. And that's how the story of Sundiata Keita and the origins of the Mali Empire still echoes through history. One legend, one victory, and one empire at a time. Imagine a kingdom so wealthy, its gold literally changed the world economy. That's the story of Mali in the 13th and 14th centuries, and at the heart of it all, Mansa Musa, the emperor who turned Mali into a legend. So, who was Mansa Musa? Ruling from 1312 to 1337, Musa wasn't just a king, he was like a superstar of his time. Under his leadership, Mali expanded massively. Picture this. The empire stretched from the Atlantic coast deep into what's now Niger and Nigeria. That's thousands of miles covering a vast mix of peoples, cultures, and buzzing trade routes. But what really put Mansa Musa and Mali on the map was his famous pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324. This wasn't just a spiritual journey, it was a spectacle. Musa set out with an enormous entourage, tens of thousands of people, camels loaded down with gold, and enough supplies to make heads turn in every city along the way. In Cairo, Musa was so generous with his gold that he actually caused inflation. That's right, he spent and gave away so much gold, prices in Egypt skyrocketed, and the economy didn't recover for over a decade. But Musa was more than just rich. He was a builder and a patron of knowledge. He brought architects and scholars back from his journey, and transformed Mali's cities, especially Timbuktu. Timbuktu became legendary. A center for trade, yes, but also for learning. Imagine scholars from all over Africa and beyond gathering here, exchanging books, ideas, and discoveries. One of Musa's most famous projects was the Jingwareber Mosque in Timbuktu, designed by the Andalusian architect Abu Ishaq es-Saheli. This wasn't just a place of worship, it was a symbol of Mali's ambitions and its place in the world. Under Mansa Musa, Islam flourished across Mali. He established madrasas, Islamic schools, that attracted students and teachers from across Africa and the Middle East. Learning became as valuable as gold, and Mali's reputation as a center of culture and knowledge was sealed. Mansa Musa's reign was truly the golden age of Mali. His vision, generosity, and ambition didn't just expand borders, they inspired generations. Today, Timbuktu and the legends of Mali remind us how one leader can shape the course of history, and how the world is often changed by those bold enough to dream, and rich enough to make those dreams real. So next time you hear about gold, power, or the world's greatest journeys, remember Mansa Musa, the emperor who made Mali shine.
Imagine a world where gold pours into cities like water, where camel caravans cut across endless dunes, and where the hum of markets echoes with a dozen languages. That was the Mali Empire at its height, and I want to take you right into the heart of its booming economy. Mali's secret: location, location, location. The empire controlled the richest parts of the trans-Saharan trade routes. Picture this: North African traders hungry for gold cross the Sahara with salt, cloth, and horses. They arrive in Mali, where gold dust is so common, it's measured with scoops. And it wasn't just gold, salt, ivory, and even enslaved people were hot exports, flowing out from Mali's bustling cities. Now, let's talk about those cities. Timbuktu, Gao, Jena, just their names sound legendary. These weren't just trading hotspots, they were also centers of learning, where scholars debated everything from astronomy to poetry. Merchants, scholars, and travelers from as far as North Africa, the Middle East, and even Europe flocked to these cities, chasing knowledge and fortune. Behind the scenes, the emperors ran a tight ship. Mali had a sophisticated tax and tribute system. Vassal states had to pay up: gold, crops, even soldiers. This wealth filled royal treasuries, funded grand mosques, and kept the empire powerful, especially under rulers like Mansa Musa, who became famous for his generosity and jaw-dropping riches. And don't forget the river Niger. This mighty waterway was the empire's lifeline, moving people, goods, and ideas. Boats packed with salt, food, and cloth glided between towns, making trade faster and safer than any desert journey. So when you think of Mali, don't just picture ancient kings and distant deserts. See the gold dust, the crowded markets, the river boats. And remember how control over trade made Mali one of the world's richest empires? That's the true legacy of the Mali emperors.
Hey everyone! Picture this. You're living in the Mali Empire centuries ago, right in the heart of West Africa. Now forget your modern classrooms for a second, because culture and education here are on a whole other level. First up, let's talk learning. Arabic and Islamic education didn't just arrive in Mali. It took root and flourished, growing right alongside traditional African customs. Imagine scholars gathering under shade trees, discussing math, astronomy, and poetry in both Arabic and local languages. Islamic schools popped up in cities and towns, blending spiritual teachings with everyday wisdom. So kids in the empire learned the Quran, but they also learned about their own history and identity. Now, if you're looking for the ancient Harvard of Africa, look no further than Timbuktu. This city wasn't just sand and trade routes. It was home to Sankore University. Picture a place so renowned that scholars from North Africa and the Middle East traveled for weeks just to study there. Sankore wasn't a university like we imagine today, but a network of learning centers, libraries, and teachers, all buzzing with ideas. Thousands of manuscripts were copied and shared, covering everything from science to philosophy. But knowledge in Mali wasn't just written down. Enter the griots, living libraries, storytellers, and musicians. Griots preserved history, not in textbooks, but through mesmerizing tales, poetry, and songs. They could recite centuries of genealogy, epic battles, and legends, all from memory. If you wanted to know the story of your people, you found a griot, sat down, and listened. So the Mali Empire was a place where learning didn't just happen in classrooms. It happened in mosques, homes, markets, and around the fire. It was a world where knowledge was treasured, shared, and lived every day. And that's something any student, past or present, can be inspired by.
Imagine standing in the heart of 15th century West Africa. The mighty Mali Empire, once glittering with gold and wisdom, is now teetering on the edge. But how did a kingdom, famous for Mansa Musa's legendary wealth and pilgrimage, unravel so dramatically? Let's break it down. First, after Mansa Musa's death, the empire's unity crumbled. His successors just couldn't hold the pieces together. Powerful local chiefs saw their chance and started grabbing power for themselves. Regions broke away, turning what was once a tight-knit empire into a patchwork of rival factions. Internal rebellion became the new normal, and the spirit that built Mali started to fade. Next, external threats piled on. In 1433, Tuareg nomads swept in from the north and captured Timbuktu, a jewel of learning and trade. With the loss of Timbuktu, Mali lost not just a city, but its status as the intellectual and commercial crossroads of West Africa. That was a blow the empire never really recovered from. And then came the biggest challenge, the rise of the Songhai Empire. Ironically, Songhai was once a vassal to Mali, but the tables turned fast. Under the bold leadership of Sunni Ali, Songhai armies marched in and took city after city. By the late 1400s, Songhai controlled most of Mali's old heartland, including the legendary city of Gao. So, the Mali Empire didn't just fall overnight, it fractured from within, lost its grip to invaders, and was eventually overshadowed by ambitious neighbors. It's a lesson in how even the greatest empires can crumble. When unity dissolves, the doors are left wide open for history to march in. And that's the story of Mali's decline. See you next time.